Trying to follow these scriptures, now the reaper's all on my back. Now it's suspect with these preachers, wonder why they teach what they teaching. You claim that you have truth, but ain't practicing what you preaching. Come around calling me bro, when I needed you, you went ghost. Don't try to get too close, or you just might get exposed. That world mission society had me locked down in my soul, and I'm not playing.
Hey everybody, my name is Edgar. I'd like to welcome all of you back to another episode of Defusing the WMSCOG. And today, what can I say? The man, the myth, the legend. He's held the title of Satan, Lucifer, the Antichrist. Since Judas Iscariot for like 7 years now. I was looking at when you first dropped the first video, which was about 7 years ago. So but
7 years.
Yeah. In reality, good friend of mine, outstanding dude, and just very excited to have him on the show. Jordan Hatfield. What's up, bro? How you been?
Hey, Edgar. Well, I appreciate that. I'm glad that I was able to make this happen because I was having some trouble figuring out how I could fit this into my schedule. I've just been doing a lot of Christmas tree worship lately. And so like figuring out how to fit this in was a bit of a yeah, it's great to be here. And like we were talking about beforehand, this is I think, like you're saying, a bit trippy in some ways, just because of where this all started for both of us. And you were, as I've said before on my channel, you were kind of the instigator in a large part to me making all the videos about the WMSCOG and kind of really diving into cult stuff on my channel. That really sprung from meeting you in Wichita, and you were a very devoted member of that group. And now here we are. You're inviting me to your channel, and what a weird turn of events.
It is, bro. It definitely feels weird, like, weird in a good way, but definitely weird because, like you said, where it all started. And then, like you said, of all things, now you're on my show, which is about defusing the WMSCOG. I mean, who would have thought it, so man, I'm excited to get into this. Man, first, right off the back, bro, I think I have to ask this question, like, because the WMSCOG has painted you, with a lot of colorful titles and names. And, I really feel that sometimes, the members from the outside, even when they leave the WMSCOG and they watch your content, like they start like, they're like, okay, he's not so bad. And, it's very useful, the content that he's putting out to help me. But I don't think people like know who is Jordan Hatfield other than what they think they know of you from the WMSCOG. So I think somewhere fun to start is, who is Jordan Hatfield? What were you doing before you met me in the WMSCOG? What are your hobbies, man? Like, just who's Jordan?
Yeah. Well, I'm married, been married since 2014, got 4 kids. I have way too many hobbies. My life is definitely doesn't just consist of doing cult stuff. I'm into Fortnite. I play Fortnite a lot, too much probably. Pokemon cards. I love movies. Probably would fit in the classification of nerd. I have multiple other YouTube channels, and that's kind of what takes up most of my time, working on creating different videos, and it's been a lot of fun learning how to implement like AI stuff into AI. Has just opened up a whole new world for a person like me who's an online creator and trying to figure out how to make a living, putting videos out and having people watch them. AI has just been a really fun thing for me to be able to learn how to use and just open up so many possibilities. And so just as a quick example, like the main channel I do right now, just to give you a little bit of a taste of the massive nerd that I am, is kind of like a movie channel where I'll I'll create kind of 10 to 15-minute videos putting different movie characters against each other and like hypothetical battles to determine who would win. And so my last one, I took a Stranger Things character and I'm putting him against different horror villains. And so it's like, really fun stuff for somebody like me who grew up loving movies and now being able to somewhat, I'm working toward being able to make a living making videos like that. And just I've just always loved creating stuff and wanted to make movies when I was young. That was my goal. I wanted to make movies. I wanted to direct movies. And so yeah, I mean that's my I think where I was at when I encountered the WMS was I was more recently married. I'm trying to think back to what time frame that would have been. If it was about 7 years ago, I would have had, so I would have had my 2 boys at that point, just trying to figure out how to be a dad and a husband, and was very, very into my Christian faith at that point. And I think it was at the beginning stages of sort of new ways of thinking and beginning to have different doubts and questions, and then encountering like you and the WMSCOG and even just different Mormons that I'd invite to my house to sit down and have conversations with. It really kind of fueled like this interest in having conversations about these sort of things, about cults and about different beliefs and about, who's right, who's wrong. And yeah, so I think I was, all this is just, there's been a definitely like I think for both of us, we've both kind of who we were 7 years ago when all this kind of started for us were, I think, dramatically different people here today. And I think I'd like to think mostly in good ways.
Yeah, I would agree, man. And I love it, bro, man. I honestly didn't know all that about you, bro. And it makes sense now hearing about like you being into movies and you had that dream as a child. It makes sense, all the content that you're trying to create, and that's pretty cool, man. And I've seen some of your channels, by the way. My favorite is the Hicks and Giggles. Dude, that one is hilarious, bro. I love that one.
I was halfway hoping that when it come up, but yeah, that's that I think that's people would really, especially people in this era, the Great Light Studios audience would probably need to kind of sit down and prepare themselves before they jumped into that. And I think it'd be kind of a shocking difference between that and what they see on Great Light Studios. But
I love it, man. I think it's cool because it shows your humanity, bro, like who you are as a person, and again, for obviously the Great Light Studios audience is WMSCOG, and so like these members, they have this idea of who you are. Like, it's funny how you were saying in the beginning, I was tree worshiping during this whole time. Like, that's literally what they think about us. You know what I mean? Like, we're just sitting at home plotting against the WMSCOG, like we have no life, I really don't know what goes on in their mind. I have an idea because I did, but it's just weird. But that being said, bro, let me ask you the first question, man. This is a question that I've had for a while. When we met, in 2000, I'm assuming 2019, because I'm kind of going off of when you dropped that first video.
Yeah, I'm just trying to see that. Yeah, it says it's about 7 years ago. So yeah.
So that would put us around 2019. So in 2019, during that time, because we've told the story before, like was it Jesse and your brother-in-law who had run into a few members at the Keeper of the Plains, and then they came and got me because they weren't doing so good against them. And then, I put in my 2 cents, and then we basically agreed to meet up. and then that's when you got involved. If I remember correctly, we ended up all meeting at a coffee
Yeah.
shop.
Yep. I think, and actually, I'm looking this the first video on the WMS I published in May 22nd, 2018.
2018. Okay.
Yeah, so I'm guessing that was around the time that
Yeah.
that had to be probably within a month that we had met, a month or two, I would think, and then. But yeah, I think that's right. I think first you were talking with Jesse, who's my brother-in-law, who's done early on, did a lot of the videos with me on the WMS. And then we ended up setting a meeting up, and we met, at another point in time, a few weeks later or something, at the coffee shop. That infamous meeting that
It started it all.
changed a lot of things. Yeah, yeah.
So here's my question, man, because like I said, we've revisited that over and over again. But my question is this, Jordan. After that conversation, you could have just walked away. You could have literally just been like, these guys are crazy, like to each his own, but you didn't. For whatever
Yeah.
reason, you decided to, you know, do a deep dive into the WMSCOG. And I'm always curious, like, why do you think that is?
Yeah. I mean, I think there's like people's motivations are so multifaceted. And so I think part of it was probably just, I think people like you and me, and I think a lot of other people and who get involved in these things would fit into the same category. I think just have like this interest in debating ideas and like having certain ideas where you're very passionate about them and convinced that your system of belief is accurate, and then you encounter something that's different, and there's just sort of this thrill and engaging with that that I have, at least. So that would be part of it. But I think my main motivation has always been, and is to this day, and I think it's changed a little bit, and what's kind of underlying that, but my motivation ultimately was just like I saw what the WMSCOG was, what it was teaching, and ultimately what that meant in terms of what it was, how it was affecting people. And so to me, it's like, well, I know it's not true. I can see why it's not factually true. And I'm able to point these things out. And so, going and making videos about this just seemed like a way that could really help people and be fun for me, just because I like creating stuff. I love creating videos and I love putting stuff out there, and to be able to do that while at the same time, hopefully helping people to realize, hey, this thing that I'm, giving my entire life to, like, it's not, you can't actually substantiate it. Like it doesn't hold up to facts and scrutiny. And ultimately it's damaging me and the other people in my life who are also in this group. So helping people to see those sort of things, I think I just have that drive for whatever reason to do that. I like personally, I just want to know what is true. Like I don't want to be, I don't want to go past, being a 5, 6, 7-year-old and continue in my life being convinced that Santa Claus is real and he's coming down my chimney on Christmas. And in the same way, I don't want to believe that this Korean guy who died and this, Korean woman is God in human form. If those things are true, well, sure, I want to know that. Like I genuinely, if that's actually what is true, like I want to know that. But if it's not, I want to know that as well. And I think that's the thing with so many people in the WMS. I think the mass majority of them are just genuine truth seekers in some way. Like they're just trying to figure out, what is this life all about? What is this reality that we all find ourselves in? What are the answers to, life's deepest questions? And people get into groups like this thinking that, oh, this is going to give me those answers. And so I think it's just that, like, knowing that there's so many genuine people and people, in susceptible time periods in their lives, many people in college who are just really looking for answers, figuring things out, asking new questions, and then thinking that these sort of groups are offering them the answers. There's such a like I'm not sure what the word would be, like a sad, frustrating like reality to all that people are being taken advantage of and manipulated and ultimately abused in different ways. And then beyond that, just literal, as all too well, decades of their lives. We have such a short time on this planet, and people having decades of their lives just literally stolen from them, and having this garbage, for lack of better terms, doctrine injected into their minds that then influences everything about how they perceive themselves, about how they perceived their family, about how they perceive their jobs, about how they perceive the things that, like, talking about hobbies again, people lose themselves entirely to this group, and that continues for me to just be such a thing that is just so wrong and so unfair. And I know that I see that the channel's helping people, so I just want to keep doing that. And I think, long story short, I guess that was, I think, has always been the motivation from day one, is just like, I want to do what I can do to help people not, get free from it, or not get swept up into this thing that I think ultimately just steals from them rather than giving them something.
Man, hearing you say that, bro, like, one, you're very articulate, but two, just you make really good points. I hadn't thought about how little time we do have on this earth, and when you really think about like how much of that time goes into work and sleep, and you really, minimize, you go down to the, to the minutes, the hours, and it's like, yeah, man, 5 year, even a 1 year, but 10 years, 15 years, like, man, that's a lot of time. And sometimes when I hear members say, man, I lost all this money, I lost, this opportunity, and I'm like, and all of that sucks. But I definitely do believe that the biggest thing they can take from you is your time, because that's the one thing that you can never replace. I think of all the relationships, parents to children, children to parents, brothers and sisters, and spouses, and just all the relationships that have been ruined and lost. You know what I mean? And I'm still kind of suffering a little bit of that. And I've been out for 5 years now, and me and my brother and sister are still trying to build that relationship that, we had prior to the WMSCOG. And, so man, I just want to say I commend you, bro, because again, the whole time you're saying that, I'm like, your intentions, obviously I'm like you in a lot of ways, to where I like to debate. But the reason I like to debate is because I am also after truth. I feel like even when I was in the WMS, I remember having that live with you when I was still in. And I remember telling you, like, hey, I listened to this guy and this guy and this guy. And you're like, what? And I'm like, yeah, man, like I'm genuinely like, I'm trying to seek truth. And I said, if you ever prove to me, like if I ever find out that this place is not true, I'll leave. And I did. And I think that, like, that's why, like, nowadays, like, I keep my mind open, because I'm genuinely on the pursuit of truth, and I think that that is why even in the WMSCOG, as there's a lot of horrible stories out there of members that have been abused and just lost so much. And I went through my fair deal of ordeals, bad experiences in the WMS, but I will say, compared to a lot of other members, I actually had it pretty good. I was pretty well respected in the church. I had already brought my family in, like I wasn't in a bad spot. But once I started realizing like it wasn't true, none of that mattered to me because I'm like, if it's not true, it's not
Yeah.
worth it. Like that, I can't
Yep.
do that. And so,
Yep.
it's pretty cool to hear you say that, but specifically, bro, because you're a little bit different, Jordan, because you had nothing to do with the WMSCOG. Like,
Yeah.
so to me, that's why I always will find it curious, and I'm glad that you explained your motives because, I'm so glad you did. And I think a lot of people that are going to watch this interview are going to be so happy that piqued your interest, because sometimes I catch myself thinking like, what if we would have never have met that fateful day in the coffee shop? Like I'm sure, that somehow, some way, it was things were gonna get out there, but who knows
Yeah.
how much longer it was gonna take, and
Yeah.
obviously we have Michelle
Yeah. And
Cologne.
I honestly don't think, like, I can't really imagine what would have happened beyond that would have made me make videos. So yeah, I really do, like, when I say, like, we always talk about this started it all, and like I really mean that. Like, I don't, it was that encounter that motivated like all the stuff that's happened on the channel since then. So yeah, I think I'm glad it happened. I'm
Yeah.
Just for the sake of all the people I know that have been able to come out, because of the things that we've done, and not just me, but all the the members who have been willing to come out and share, and the debates we've had, and yeah, a lot of stuff that's happened. I think positive, uh, effects on people, just because we had that,
Yeah.
kind of random encounter.
Yeah. It's sobering to think, man. And I also want to tell you that I'm very grateful for that. Even individually, like I'm grateful for that time. You know what I mean? Like that day, that meeting, like I didn't know it was going to, turn into what it turned into, but man, I'm so glad that it did. And I was gonna mention, like, obviously we have Michelle Cologne that had been out, and she, had started the examining site, and Ron
Yep.
Ramos had, done his interview, and Deaconess Diane. But I feel like, honestly, bro, like when you came on the scene and start putting those videos out, like it changed the game. Like, because even me, like I had looked at all those things before, but I had never really like paid attention to it, and like all of a sudden I see, I don't know how much of it was that I knew you and that I had met you. And I'm not gonna lie, when I first started seeing you make videos, I was like, oh man, this guy's going there.
That
Okay,
little
like
rat.
yeah, like like all right, next time I see him, we're gonna go at it, and,
Yeah.
and like it was
Yep.
always that contention, but like it really, like, man, that sparked a movement. So I will always say, like, my Mount Rushmore of XWMS, or not XWMS, but like WMSCOG slanders, or most hated by the
Yeah.
WMSCOG. I have Michelle Cologne, I have Ron
Yep.
Ramos, and I have you on there, man. I don't have a fourth. Maybe we could throw Diane on there.
We'll figure out the fourth. Yeah.
We'll figure out the fourth, but you guys are definitely on my Mount Rushmore. And
Yep. The WMS are just down there chucking their tomatoes and stuff at it.
they're tearing their robes and just launching stones at them, man. But so let me ask you this, man. Like first impressions. I've never gotten this far into our encounter. Like,
Yeah.
what did your brother-in-law what did they even tell you when they came back and had that encounter with us? Like what was that conversation like?
Yeah. I'm trying to remember. I mean, I think like Jesse and I back then were just really into like apologetics type stuff, just defending the Christian faith, and you know, figuring out good arguments to kind of refute other ideas, whether it was Mormonism or Jehovah's Witnesses or Unitarianism, just anything that was like opposed to like our kind of structure of Christianity that we thought was true. And so we already had that interest that we had for years. I had for years. And so it's kind of like when you encounter a group like the WMSCOG, you know, for us who already had that interest in debating that sort of thing and the apologetics passion, it was just kind of like an immediate interest. And so I think it was more, you know, he probably just was like, hey, here's this other group and here's what they believe. And so I think though, like the thing that struck us about the WMS, I think I remember having conversations with Jesse about was just the intensity of this group. I guess the difficulty level, you could say too, like in terms of like arguing against it and the level of like passion and zeal that was going to be coming back against you, if that makes sense.
It does. Okay, so is this pre-coffee shop or after coffee? Because I guess I want to understand, like, when you encountered, because it was me and Deacon Murray. I remember that.
Right.
So it's not like you were just talking to just a regular member, a brand new member. You know, you were talking to someone who had a little bit of rank on him. You know, Deacon Murray, he was very well versed. You know what I mean? I would think that I could hold my own. So like when we were engaging, when we were debating, like what was first I'd like to know, what was your impression of us? Like, and please don't pull any punches, like, because obviously the arrogance is going to be oozing out of our ears. Like, like what was your impression when you met us, when we walked in and sat down?
I think talking? Like I think there's like definitely a difference between you and Murray, like at least like a subtle difference. And I think Murray came off as, I think had more arrogance. It seemed like, and I just think that's a lot of that's probably just related to having this position and that he had, and sort of this assumption of like, you guys are wrong. And I guess just, I sensed in Murray, maybe I was wrong. I don't know, but I just sensed like less of an open-mindedness, less of like actually having a dialogue than I felt with you. Like, I think when we were talking to you, you struck me more as somebody who was like genuinely having a conversation, and you were definitely very much convinced of what you believed, but it just felt like there was more of a genuine back and forth where Murray was more like going through his
script.
Yeah, he was going through a script, not really listening to what we were saying or trying to understand, just kind of popping out his answers. And so I think I think I felt less of that with you, and it seemed more like you were somebody who was, again, just genuinely seeking truth, and this is where you had arrived. And I think that's actually part of why I left that conversation with like the WMS so like sticking with me, because that was just one example of many that I had over the years of like somebody who believed completely different things, but had an obvious, like, genuine faith, genuine love for God, for truth, for the Bible, for getting it right. And so to me, like, I guess that's one of the things that just was confusing in terms of like, how did I reconcile that with my faith? Like, how did it make sense that God would allow somebody like you, who's just genuinely seeking truth, again, loves the Bible, it has this passionate faith, but you had obviously just arrived at these ideas that were just completely wacko.
Yeah.
You know? And so, yeah, that was one of the things that just stuck with me and made me want to dive into it all more.
I mean, yeah, like, you know, I don't wanna spend the whole time on there because I know that I want to ask you a lot more questions, but it's definitely fascinating to hear you say that because like from my perspective, man, I felt like I was just so arrogant and like a know-it-all and like yes, I did like to hear like I guess that's one thing I know that would like to hear people out, like at least hear what they have to say to make sure that I'm trying to answer the best way possible. But I
Yeah.
do remember that you were giving us a run for our money, like as well. I do think, like from my perspective, I kind of saw like Deacon Murray when he was going into like the heavenly wedding banquet, and he was, going to a few verses. I saw you guys. He was turning up the heat a little bit. I did see you guys were like, okay, I've never heard this kind of stuff before, but
Yeah.
he couldn't like seal the deal because you guys, well, wait a second, what about context? Well, what about this? Like, I don't know about this. And like he was kind of stuck there. And I was like, this
Yeah.
is interesting. And then when I
Yeah.
really felt like he was starting to get in trouble, that's when I pulled the old reliable. That's when I was like, hey, well, what about Daniel 7:25, which was again in
Right.
my mindset, like, okay, I gotta change the goalposts. Like, okay, it's not looking to like
Yeah.
internally a switch went off, and I'm like, okay, I gotta help this brother, this deacon. So I'm like, Daniel 7:25. What about changing the set times and the laws? And yeah, I remember getting into that conversation. That's kind of where it was like, okay, there is like I haven't heard a good answer. So you guys were kind of like thinking about it. We were just kind of
Yep.
waiting and regroup, and then we were just like the conversation was all right. Well, let's meet another day. And but it was definitely interesting, and that was from my perspective. You know what I mean? You
Yep.
guys seem like cool, humble guys, but that's not how I'm viewing you guys. Obviously, through the WMS lenses, like I'm not trying. In my mind, I'm like these guys are opposing the truth. They are
Yep.
antichrist, false prophets, and so it's pretty
Yeah.
weird looking back at it now. But anyway, yeah, I just always was curious to your thoughts on that conversation, how everything went. Also, I want to bring up about the time that you actually later you went to Wichita Zion, and from my understanding, they had kicked you
Yeah.
out, right? So I
Yeah.
wasn't there that day, but
They
yeah, like,
did.
could you explain that to how that happened?
Yeah. I'm trying to remember exactly what happened, but we just wanted to go back again just to like engage in the debate of it all. And that was something that I don't remember a lot of the specifics, but I do know that it ended with well, we sat through a study. So we were in one of their big rooms. They had like I think it was like school desks style things all around the room. So it was like this big presentation room. Murray was up at the whiteboard doing this thing. We were all sitting in the classroom. Um, and I think we were, raising our hands at different times and kind of interjecting, asking questions that were obviously like problematic for
Yeah.
him and troublesome to answer. And he had all these people in the room, a lot of them who had just been brought in from the streets or from Walmarts or wherever they had gotten them and convinced them to come into this church. And so we're looking around at all these people like, oh, like this guy's up there, like, putting out these ideas into all these susceptible minds that for many of them might be this hook that starts this, like we talked about earlier, this journey toward losing 10 years of their lives or so. But yeah, it ultimately ended with I don't think I was in the room when this happened, but I think Jesse and it might have been my brother Shem were outside, like out in the entryway area of the church and talking with members or talking with like new people who had been brought in. And Murray just walked up like stone cold, like this, like mean mugging Jesse, like literally was just like walked up and stood right next to him. Jesse thought he was going to punch him. And he just said, "Get out now." Like his words were very few, just was like very angry. His face was red, I think. And he was just said, "Get out." And no, I was there. I was in the room, I think, at that point. But anyways, yeah, he kicked us out. And I don't think we went back at that point just because I knew it would it wasn't going to lead to like productive conversations. It was just going to make him mad, and they were just going to lock the doors or
Yeah.
not allow us to interact with anybody. So I don't think we ever went back after that. But that's when that was the same to you and a couple others saw that we were getting kicked out, and you're like, well, let's go somewhere else then. We'll go. And so
Oh, okay.
we went to McDonald's then after that,
Yeah.
and it was me and Jesse and you and I think a couple other members that came, and
But
we all sat down and talked then too.
but Jordan, I don't know because there was two different times I thought that you had gone to the church because
Yeah, maybe.
the one with where you had the group study with where you joined the group Bible study with Deacon Murray. I wasn't there that day. I know
Yeah.
because I remember specifically them telling me like there's gonna be a study and but I was like, I'm gonna be at work. And then Deacon Murray at the time sends me a message and he's like, guess who's coming? And I'm like, who? And he's like, Jordan. And he was like, watch what I'm going to do to them. Like, I got everything like planned out. It's like he already had it schemed out that he told me you guys were gonna join the Bible study and that he was like, he had something planned in my mind. I remember I was already at work reading this message, and I was just thinking
Okay.
to myself, like, why would he invite them to the church Bible study? Like,
Yeah.
I didn't think personally, even at that time, I was still in. I personally didn't think he did that good of a job, with you guys at the coffee shop. So I was like, he's
Yeah.
gonna invite them to a church Bible study where
Yeah.
members could be affected by what they say. And I remember
Yeah.
just thinking to
Well, that's
myself, and
interesting.
yeah, like this is my point of view, right? And I know my friend Ricardo, he's the one that brought me into the church. He's now out where he's my best friend, and we talk about, stuff like this all the time. And I remember telling him that day, like, I don't think this is gonna turn out very well,
Yeah.
and
Well, I guess it didn't. I guess it didn't go as he expected. I wasn't aware that he was like had wanted that to
yeah.
happen.
Oh, he
Because
wanted
yeah,
it.
it ended with him being like, again, if this was that would have been the same time that it ended with him getting really unhappy. And
Okay.
I'm just guessing that was because of the questions we were asking and the things that
Right.
we were bringing up that he couldn't respond to, or he just knew this is not going to be good for people to hear. So
Yeah.
yeah,
You
I
know,
don't think it went like he had planned.
and the funny thing is, I got there later that night after I got off of work, and everything had already happened. I didn't see Deacon Murray, like he wasn't in the multi-purpose room where all the members were at, but all the gospel workers, like they all talked to me. So they, as soon as I walked in, they're like, "Hey, brother Edgar, you missed it. This and this was going on." And then one of them pulled me into the kitchen. He was like, it wasn't good. He was like, one of the sisters was actually like taking Jordan's side in the study room.
Yeah,
Like it left her
that's
thinking.
right.
And
Yeah.
and I was
That's
like,
right. I
man,
remember
like
that.
I'm like in my head, I was like, man, that's crazy. Like I had a feeling that, and I remember Murray never brought it up to me, after that. But I
Yeah.
think that that was a different time because I remember another time I think you guys came, and I don't know if they just didn't let you guys in
I
or
think maybe that's what happened. I think maybe we did try to come back and they stopped. I think that's what happened. I think we
yeah,
came back, tried to come back after that, and they stopped us at the door, wouldn't even let us in.
yeah, and
And I think
that's
that's when you guys saw because when we got kicked out, I think it was evening, it was dark. But when we went from the church and met together again at the McDonald's, it was during the day. So those would
yeah,
have been two different
two
times. So I
occasions.
think that's how it happened. Yeah.
Yeah, and I remember that time, man. I remember at McDonald's, it was just another classic battle between me and you, bro, and
Oh yeah.
that was fun.
Epic.
I remember I didn't even want to go at that time, like that second time, or because I was like, it's just gonna be a waste of time. Like we're gonna disagree with with each other, but it was one of the
Yep.
brothers. His name is Andres. I can say his name because he's out. We're good friends too now.
Good. Good.
And but he was like, bro, you gotta come. He was like, because if you don't come, he was like, Mario's gonna go. And we both know Mario. Mario is still in, but and I hate bringing up his name because he's such a crazy guy. That dude is super lost in the sauce, but like Andres knew it was not gonna go well for him. And so he was like,
Yeah.
please, like, I'm not gonna leave him. Like, come with me. So that's why I ended up going, and I'm glad I did.
Okay.
All those encounters that I had with you, man. Like, I feel like it was for a reason. You know what I mean? And like, even
Yeah.
if maybe at
Planted
that
some
time,
seeds,
yeah,
probably.
planted some seeds, man. And like, especially reading the book of Galatians and Ephesians, like actually
Yep.
reading books in their entirety, like really helped me out. Um,
Yeah.
Now let's move on to the next part, man. I want to ask you this, bro. Like, since doing this, obviously you've had to have had encounters with the WMSCOG, whether personally, like through the comment sections of YouTube, like email. Can you take me through like some of the wildest things that you might have seen, read, you know what I mean, or heard from the
Yeah. Yeah.
WMSCOG members?
Oh, let's see. I mean, I had like in Wichita with Mario. I mean, we had a interaction where we were down by the Keeper of the Plains, the river there, downtown Wichita. I think we were just there. I don't think we were. I think we just like ran into him. It just seems like we would run into Mario
Yeah.
everywhere. But it ended with me, or it turned into me and Mario obviously debating, and he was just like, it was just not going anywhere good. It's just a
Yeah.
completely irrational
It's like
conversation.
talking to a wall.
And it ended with people were walking by and he was trying to make a point. I can't remember exactly what it was, but he started kicking over. So downtown Wichita, they have these little scooters that you can rent, and then you can ride them around, and you pay to rent them, and then you drop them off at certain points. But he would he started just like literally like kicking them over. He was like yelling about something and just started kicking them over. People were walking by like, what in the world is going on here? And he was doing that he was like trying to make some point about I think he was tying it somehow to Jesus, like with his whip in the temple and driving people out, and it was just a really uncomfortable situation. And I just kind of stood back and was like, okay, buddy, we're done.
Yeah.
We're done here.
Yeah.
And he was like yelling at people passing by, like, do you think Jesus would do this? And then he would like kick over a scooter, and people were like, no, man, I don't think he would. So people walking by were even like realizing that it was a weird conversation. So that was one. And then I can't say for sure, because obviously I can't see who's on the other end of these things, but I've had a lot over the years of like, I think, attempted hacks into my social media, people trying to get into like the Great Light Studios Instagram and different things like that. And so I just kind of assumed that was sort of in the middle of like probably the most heated time in this whole area where I was putting out videos most often. Yeah. And so I can only assume that it was, at least some of those were from the WMS. Again, I can't say for sure. But yeah, but I haven't had a whole lot of like, beyond the conversations I had with you, I haven't had a whole lot of personal interactions with members. But of course, the comments are always entertaining and obnoxious beyond belief. Yeah. And I just basically I don't read a whole lot of the comments anymore at this point on the channel that I know are coming from members, because it's just the same. Yeah. It's the same exact thing over and over and over again, and it's just so mindless. And at this point, like, my initial reaction is I just get immediately like frustrated at it, and I just want to I have to stop myself from just commenting how big of idiots these people are, because I have to stop and remember, okay, this is probably somebody who is just a member. They're in the church. They're convinced of this stuff, and this is what they've been programmed to, spit out on the internet to people. They're obviously, 99% of the time, they're not even watching the video. The most frustrating thing is when they're commenting on former members who come out, and some of them sharing really
sensitive,
like personal, sensitive, and just terrible things that happen to them, regardless of what you think about the WMS. I mean, if people would just sit and listen to some of these stories, they'd realize, like, man, that was not okay how this person was treated in the church. And so when people, like, members will come on and comment like, oh, this person, like this former member, is just in it for fame or whatever idiotic thing they'll say in the comments, just these accusations. Those things can be really frustrating. I don't know. Beyond that, I guess I don't have too many
I think it's
entertaining interactions, but
yeah, I think that like you said, man, they get tired quick. I mean, honestly, like what's funny to me is like the same type of comments that I would leave, back in the day on your channel, I'm getting the same comments now on my channel.
Oh, I bet.
And
I kind
of just want to like tell people, hey, save the trouble. Look, here's my old YouTube handle. Go to the old Great Light Studios videos. Just copy the message that I would post on there and just paste it on mine, because I said the same things. You know what I mean? And like, it's so surreal to me, man. But I can't help but feel bad for some of these people. But at the same time, they also have to be held accountable for some of the things that they say. Because again, they judge a lot of these members that tell their story. They have no idea how hard it is to do it, and members don't gain anything from doing it other than for their own healing process and helping others. And like these people who have no idea, who most of the time don't even watch the videos, and yet they're commenting this vile stuff. And it's what I always say, like, this is the kind of example that they get from Zangil Ja in general pastor.
That's the culture. That's the culture.
Yeah, man. It's pretty sad when you really think about it. So let me ask you this, Jordan. What are you up to these days, man? Like since starting WMSCO, the WMSCOG, since starting Great Light Studios and pumping out all these videos, like how has life changed now?
Yeah, I mean, I haven't been, as probably people have noticed, been doing as much stuff on Great Light Studios lately, and there's a variety of reasons for that. Probably the main one is just like financially. It's just my goal over the years was to be able to be like full-time supported, to be able to do Great Light Studios like as a full-time job, because as it is just keeping up with everything. It's impossible to do if you're gonna have another job and try to keep up with all this stuff. It's really difficult. And so, I've kind of, as I mentioned, like the different YouTube channels that I've been more focused on lately. And that's just so I can, feed my kids and pay for my house and stuff like that. But we moved recently. I've had some medical stuff that hasn't been too fun going on the last few years. We kind of just discovered some things the last few months and had a surgery, and so that, and I'm trying to like figure out like the direction with Great Light Studios, because I definitely want to keep doing stuff. I want to keep doing the interviews. I'm not, at least at this point, able to do them as often. So even though, like, just so people who might watch Great Light Studios and listen to this one know, like, I'm not done with the channel, even though it's been slow. I do plan to keep putting stuff out. I just trying to find the time to do that has been difficult. But I miss it. Like, doing this is just, it's fun. I love talking about this stuff. And this reminds me of why I've been doing it for so many years. So I don't know if that answers your question.
No, it definitely does, man. And and man, like I think that that's gonna be refreshing for a lot of people to hear, like because there's a lot of people who are always asking, like especially in the WMSCOG ex-member circle, like where's Jordan? How's Jordan doing? You know what I mean? I'll get that question a lot. So I think that this is gonna answer some questions, and it's very nice to hear that you're still still got the enthusiasm to want to do this, man. And if there's anything I can do to help, like like I've told you before, man, I love tag teaming with you, man. And you know what I mean. So I got some crazy stuff that I'm gonna get myself into here with the Korean, like the Korean cults, and maybe that's some things we can talk about in the future. I've also been talking to a lot of deacons, so maybe we could do some interviews on your channel with some of these deacons that want to share their stories as well.
Yeah, definitely.
But yeah, man, like it's pretty cool to hear you say that. All right, so let's move on to my next question, man. Like as far as because there's one thing that I've always also noticed about you, like even when I don't know, maybe I'm wrong, because when I started watching your channel, obviously it was because of the WMSCOG stuff, but the Calvinism stuff, the reform stuff, was that stuff happening before WMSCOG where you were making videos kind of like refuting that? Was it like while you were doing WMS, or like kind of when was that? Where does that drive come from? Like, why are you passionate about that?
Yeah, I think like I started, well, I'm looking at my oldest videos. I think I actually put out a WMS video before the Calvinism stuff, but that was something that was definitely stewing for a long time. And before I encountered the World Mission Society Church of God, I had thought a lot about the Calvinism stuff. And that just comes from the same, I think really the same thing that, we were talking about earlier. And in terms of my motivation for putting out all those videos against Calvinism and why I have that passion, it just comes down to that basic thing again about how I think those ideas impact people. And Calvinism is like a system of theology that exists within, traditional Christianity. It's not, labeled as like a cult. So it's not like in the same category of something like the WMSCOG or Mormonism. But it's at the same time, it's something that I always, and increasingly so, probably, more now than I ever have, view as a system of belief that is just harmful and damaging. And I tell people, and I've said it on the channel before, like it's like the most horrible worldview I can think of. And maybe I should rephrase that and say it's like one of the most, because I could probably, if I really try, I could come up with some pretty terrible views of what reality is all about. But when I say worldview, I mean like what you think about what's really going on here. What is really at the heart of reality? What's who is God? And so I think Calvinism presents this view of the world, of this reality that we live in, that is just horrible and terrifying, and presents this view of God. For those who don't know, there's a lot to this. So I know if a Calvinist listened to me, they would jump all over this. But to get to like the bare bones basics, like of the ideas, and I think there's some similarities in how the World Mission Society Church of God view some of these things. But it has to do with a big part of Calvinism, at least when most people think of it, they're going to think about the ideas of predestination that exists within Calvinism. So God, you'll have all these verses in the Bible that talks about God choosing certain people, and Romans 9, of course, a big one. And so kind of the basic idea that comes out of Calvinism is that God has selected, before he created anybody, selected who would be saved and who would not be saved. And you're going to have a wide variety of views in terms of to what degree Calvinists might hold to these certain ideas or the way they interpret them. But I think the truest form of Calvinism basically has this idea that God chose, again, before anybody was born, he chose who would be saved and who would not be saved. And so in essence, you have God bringing countless billions of people into existence throughout history for the ultimate purpose. Like ultimately what's going to happen to those people, he brings them into the world so that and then he will withhold from them their entire lifespan on this earth. He's going to withhold from them any ability to repent, any ability to believe. They're born totally depraved, which means they're born haters of God. They cannot love God. They cannot repent. They cannot have any genuine seeking of God unless God gives that to them or grants that to them. And so Calvinism ultimately says that for countless billions, I would argue the mass majority of people who will ever live, God has decided to bring them into existence so that he can, and again, keep in mind, he's bringing them into existence as totally depraved people who can only hate God. And then he's going to withhold from them their entire lifespan any ability to repent or turn to him for salvation. So they're not going to be able to turn to him and repent. Then he's going to punish them for not repenting and believing in him, even though he's the only one that could allow them to do that. He's going to punish them for that by torment, like allowing them or causing them, damning them to an eternal torment in the fires of hell. However you interpret that. So I just think like there's so much more to it, but that idea of God, and I think you can come up with different ways of dealing with certain of these issues as Calvinists do to soothe the obvious, I think knee-jerk response in every person, like every rational moral person who hears that is gonna be like that doesn't seem fair, right? And so like Romans 9, where it talks about Jacob I loved, Esau I hated. It's just this idea that Calvinists get from Scripture that God is sovereign over all things, and to them, sovereignty doesn't just mean, I think, what the word actually means, which is, the president is sovereign over this nation, but that doesn't mean he's meticulously controlling every single thing, every single event, every single action, every single thought that happens in the United States. But sovereignty to most Calvinists, again, I'd say like the consistent Calvinist, is that God is meticulously controls every detail. So nothing happens in the universe, no thought, no action, no rejection of God or acceptance of God. Nothing happens unless he has specifically determined that event would take place. And so that's something, again, that plays into it, is that not only is God bringing these people into the world, but he's determining everything about their life, and again, determining that they will not have the genuine means to escape this horrible fate that he's determined that they would end up in, again, which is this eternal torment in the fires of hell.
Yeah.
So to me, it's just another view that, like, having that be something that's taught to people, and then that's the way that you perceive reality. That's the way that you think about God. That's the way you think about yourself. That's the way you think about other people. I just think it's just such a horrible perception of the world. And so if it's true, that's one thing. Like if it's true, I don't know. It's just, I think it's a pretty miserable, gloomy existence that we all live in. Fortunately, it's not true. But yeah, so long-winded way of me saying, I think the same reason I feel passionate about trying to get people to understand, hey, Mother God is not living in North Korea or South Korea right now. Like, that's not true.
Yeah.
You don't have to give all this money to this organization every month. Like, that's not getting you anywhere with your, that's not giving you points in your relationship with God. And so the same reason I feel that motivation to help people see that with the cults, I have that motivation for things like Calvinism, and I'm not doing a whole lot with any of that either on the channel right now, but it's definitely something that, as you can probably tell, like, I still just feel pretty I don't know what the word, I guess, passionate about. So hopefully that answers your question.
It makes perfect sense, because I was actually gonna say that hearing you like say that, I can visually see like your body language and everything, like you're very passionate about that topic. You sound like me when I'm talking about the WMSCOG, and I can just see it, and definitely always been curious, you know what I mean? Like obviously why you see it the way that you do, but even hearing you explain it, like it makes sense. And I've also looked into it myself. Obviously I'd love to pick your brain more about that maybe at a future time, but man, yeah, there's a lot there.
And just to add into there too, I think, something that probably is important to bring up, like a big part that goes into all this for me in terms of like what motivates me to have such an interest in these things. And I think why it is that when I see theologies that I think are just not true and that are harmful, like why I feel that motivation to talk about them or make videos about them, it ultimately comes down to just my own personal experiences with theology and seeing how theology has impacted me in some severe, serious ways. Something I've gotten into a little bit on the channel, but like with ideas like the unforgivable sin, like I had a period of my life that was just incredibly, incredibly dark and just terrifying. I ended up having to quit my job. I had to move back in with my parents. I was thinking, convinced I was going to end up either dead or in a mental hospital. And all that experience was because of different theologies, different ideas that I had embraced, and my perception of God, my perception of what the Bible was saying. And so it was in that time of like being deeply affected by theology that I started wrestling with things like Calvinism, and would come across verses like Romans 9 and be like, is it really saying what the Calvinists think it says? And in that time, I was like, I wanted to know what the Bible said. Like I was willing to accept that and embrace that as being true if I thought that's actually what the Bible is saying. But I just became convinced that it wasn't. But it was like even realizing, like, if that's true, I don't think, and I'm going to say this, and this is going to probably offend a lot of Calvinists, but I don't think a lot of people, probably most Christians that embrace ideas like Calvinism, or even I would say I like eternal conscious torment in hell, there's a level to which I don't think people really believe in those ideas. Like I think there's this element to where there's this degree of like intellectual assent to certain ideas, but there's not like this, I don't think, like belief and like a conviction of something being true in its like most real form. And the reason I say that is because I think I got to a point where I was absolutely convinced of these things in a way that when I thought about like eternal conscious torment, for instance, and I became convinced that that's where I was going because of certain things I had done and just all these ideas I had in my head. I became convinced, and I think ultimately, now looking back, I created this story for myself in my life based on all these theologies I had heard and these pastors I had been listening to for years. I had this story in my head that I was on my way to eternal conscious torment. And when I became convinced of that, that's when I think belief in these things became real, and it completely wrecked everything, my entire world. And so when I say I don't think most people, like most Christians, actually believe, is because of that. Because I think if you're walking around in this world and you really believe that like, arguably the majority of people you're going to see or encounter, very likely even many of your closest friends and family, like they have these few years on earth, but their ultimate destination is, whether you think hell is like literal fire or whatever it is just this unbelievably agonizing, horrible beyond belief existence that just never ends. It goes on and on and on. Like, I think if a person fully embraces that, I think they're going to be like I was in that time, where you can barely get yourself out of bed. Like, you're just like, I had times where I just writhe around in my bed in emotional agony and turmoil. It's just something that I can't really explain even. And I think, I had gone to the internet and have over the years and found a lot of other people who I think go through that. And I think now looking back, I think it has to do a lot with personality types and probably psychological conditions, and things that might even need diagnosed, like OCD, which I've been diagnosed with. But I just think that it's like, when I just saw how those ideas have truly embraced what that really means. Again, I don't think if people do that, like, you can't exist in this world. Like, you can't function as a human being if you're really internalizing those things in a genuine, legitimate way. If you're internalizing this idea that God might have, again, going back to Calvinism, like, I might be believing in God today, but we don't know what God chooses or why he chooses what he chooses. And he's sovereign, and he can do whatever the hell he wants whenever he wants. And so he might, and he does, under Calvinism, determines that certain people will live years of their lives being passionate, zealous for God, believers in the Bible, living out the Christian life, and then turn out to fully reject it. And God has determined that for them. There's nothing they can do to stop it. There's nothing they can do to prevent it or change it. And so that's another one of those ideas where I think, as a Calvinist, if you're really embracing that, like, how do you even function? Because you can tell yourself, you can comfort yourself in different ways and say, well, today I have the fruits of the Spirit. Today I love God. But at the end of the day, you can't really know. Like, there's no confidence you can have in that. And so I just think that these different theology can be incredibly dangerous and incredibly damaging. And that's true in the WMSCOG and anywhere else. And that's just something that I think, again, my passion for it comes from me personally experiencing, like, the bad end of that stick, and to an intense degree, experiencing how much theology can really affect a person. And so yeah, as I've come to realize, hey, these different things that affected me in these ways, they're actually not true. And I don't actually think they're, like, why would I live my existence perceiving the world in this way if it's not true, any more than I would think that Santa Claus is going to come down my chimney? But the difference between those two things is, believing in Santa Claus coming down your chimney every Christmas is mostly harmless. That's not really going to impact you. But if you're embracing this idea that, hey, God might have created me and hated me from birth and decided that my ultimate fate is to burn for an endless duration of time, like, that's incredibly significant. And so I just think, like, it's just wrong that these ideas are taught to people. Again, whether it's WMSCOG or Calvinism or whatever, it's just not okay in my view, if it's not true. Yeah. So no, I think I hope that helps maybe people understand a little bit, like, as I've talked about my passion for these different things. That's ultimately what drives it. It's just me personally being impacted by similar things and just realizing, oh, that can happen and is happening at different levels and degrees for different people. I would like to help people, to not have that happen to them.
Right. I would say, man, like, even hearing you say a few minutes ago, you were talking about how you can even, like, function under that type of worldview, because it offers no type of like security, no type of like peace. You don't know, like you said, you brought up a good point. Today I have the fruits of the spirit, but what if tomorrow I wake up and I don't feel the same way, or something's going on, I'm having a bad day? Like, what then? Am I then lost? And just the fact
Your
that you're
confidence is
thinking
gone.
about it, yeah, and your confidence is gone. And you know what it reminded me of? It's kind of funny, the short that you made on your channel where I'm saying you
Yeah.
can do all these things and have no
Yep.
peace. And I have no peace in the WMSCOG, and it's pretty crazy to see
Yeah.
like the similarities there. And then even when
Yep.
you brought up the topic of hell and what was the word, eternal
Eternal conscious
conscious
torment.
torment. And I've
Yeah.
been kind of looking into that. I'm not confident into to say one way or another. I like there's the traditional view, but I've been seeing there's a lot of rambling going on. I don't know if you've been watching,
I
with
have.
Kirk
I've seen a
Cameron
little bit.
and
Yes, I saw that.
yeah, and like there's all these
Yeah.
apologists are like, going after him, and it's pretty
Yeah.
crazy, pretty nuts, man.
It
Making
is
me,
crazy.
yeah. Yeah, it's making me want to like look into all of these things. Like I said, I'm not gonna lie, I haven't like really looked into everything in detail. So, these are things that prompt my curiosity. You know what I mean? I love
Yep.
to, still study the Bible and, hear everybody's point of view and try to like, just I'm on a pursuit of truth, kind of like how we said in the beginning, and
Yep.
so it's pretty cool to hear you say that, man. Um,
Yeah. The
would you want
Kirk
to say
Cameron
something?
stuff has been, well, I've been pretty removed from a lot of those conversations, but I have seen some of the Kirk Cameron stuff pop up, and that's just been. I mean, I've been in a process of change with my own faith over many years, and I like we were talking about earlier. Like I'm not today. I'm very far removed from where I was again, like 7 years ago when I started all this. But so like seeing, sometimes it's somewhat surreal to see the way so many Christians are responding to Kirk Cameron, who simply, as far as I understand, I think I watched a bit of or read a bit of what he said about basically being unsure of the so-called traditional view of hell that's been like the prominent view for, I think, I don't know how long. I don't think it's been certainly not all throughout church history, but I think all he did was just suggested that he doesn't know if the traditional view of hell, the traditional view, for those who don't know, is the view that the Dante's Inferno kind of view that you're going to like what most people in modern day think of when they think of hell, which is like this endless fiery torment that just goes on and on and on forever and ever. So there's different ideas that have always existed within Christianity that have been held by different Christians since the very beginning. One of those is conditional immortality, which is the idea that there's a final punishment, but people are basically annihilated. So annihilationism is another name for it, but they're put out of existence. Ultimately, they're not, kept in existence for an endless amount of time, as the traditional view of hell says. So, as I understand, all Kirk Cameron did was suggest that, hey, I don't know if the traditional view is actually what the Bible teaches, and I'm looking into conditional immortality, and I think maybe it is actually what the Bible teaches. And just seeing the way many Christians, at least, have responded to that, like in many cases, just casting him out, like insinuating or outright saying that it's heresy and that he's a heretic, or he's, ultimately the ultimate kind of end of what many people are saying is like he's not a true Christian, or he like casting him out of the in club, like he's no longer part of the club because he has these different ideas about certain things. And so I guess that's that whole thing, like that obviously exists in the World Society Church of God, and you see that so blatantly when you get into like interacting with a group like that. But I've just seen how much of that exists within evangelical Christianity, and that's been incredibly difficult to process for me. And it's just been one aspect, I suppose, of what's led to different changes in my own views of things. But anyways, I know you weren't probably wanting to get off on a Kirk Cameron tangent, but
I love it.
I had forgotten about that.
Yeah, like, you know, I love it because I love to, you know, just talk all things. Like, I'm not on the script right now, you know what I mean? Like, I'm trying to pick your brain, man, and see, you know, because I know that you're interested in these type of topics, and I find them very interesting as well, you know, and so makes me want to look into it further, you know. And I think that a lot of people are very like closed-minded, and one thing that, you know, and I agree with what you said, you know, like obviously, like I can't say that I'm, you know, here or there because I'm still on the process, and I'm focusing on, you know, other things like mostly WMSCOG doctrine, because that is what, you know, most people, you know, write to me about or have questions about. But those are things that I'm still trying to, you know, look up myself. And I think that there's nothing wrong with, you know, trying to understand and try to pursue truth. And I think there's a lot of people that try to deter people from doing that. Look at the WMSCOG. You know, trying to understand something or even having a thought is, you know, considered sin, or eating from the tree of the knowledge of good and evil, and you see where that gets you, you know, and it's not right. So I don't agree with that either. Let me ask you this, Jordan. So, like, going back to the WMSCOG, man, obviously a lot of things have changed since, you know, when you first started it, even when I, you know, met you and everything, and like to now present 2026. When it comes to the WMSCOG, where have you seen them like evolve? Where have you seen any changes, if any, from when you first met them and kind of like try to understand them, look them up, research them, talk to some members, to where they're at now? Where has it changed?
Yeah, so I think like that's a question that you would actually be a lot better suited to answer, just because I know like you and so many of the former members are probably more aware of like the inner workings of the church and what's changing. And like I do feel like I've been posting less often, and I feel more removed from the whole thing lately. But I do know like that what I've seen just in talking with you and talking with other members is that WMS definitely has, and I think continues to change and evolve. And I almost like hesitate to use those words in the sense, because it could convey like this positive sort of idea, like that they're changing, they're growing. So when I say like I've seen them grow and evolve, I don't see that in like an ultimate, like, I guess in some sense it's positive, but overall it's nothing really to write home about. But I do think like all the videos and all the like the criticism they faced has forced them in many ways to shift and change things. And I suppose like in terms of like a specific example, the most recent thing I can think of is like what I talked, like what you told me about, like we made a video about the Green Book, about ahnsahnghong's Green Book, and we made many videos about that. But just as we pointed out the many issues with them and pointed out the 3 chapters that he wrote that the WMS has removed from the book. I don't know if this is still true, or still happening, but it sounded like from what you were hearing and from what some people were saying from inside the church, it sounds like they're going to maybe bring these chapters out and like do studies on them with members, which is something they've never done. And they've always tried to hide them and keep them away and out of sight. But so I guess like I've seen them evolve in that way, just in reaction to criticism, which is just very unfortunate. But I do think that some of that has probably been positive. I think probably some of the criticism about, you know, separating families or their treatment of members at times. I think some of the criticism about like some of the behavioral aspects and the cultural aspects, I think, you know, even if it's not this massive overall change of the organization. I think these little shifts are probably leading to like members inside the church having a little more of a, you know, healthy environment to exist in. But yeah, I think, like I said, I don't think overall that I've seen like any significant change worth writing home about. I think they continue to kind of do things as they do. And I think you continue to see like an underlying motivation of power and money and control. And I don't unfortunately see that changing anytime soon. I think the only thing we can hope for and fight for is like the size of the group just slowly dwindling down as members continue to trickle out, hopefully through all these videos. And that's why I think, you know, it's so important, and I don't want to stop doing it. It actually like pains me sometimes knowing, man, I'm not putting stuff out. And I want to be, because I know like there's a lot of stuff out there. Obviously we put out tons of interviews, but just the way YouTube algorithms and all that works, like, you know, YouTube's going to be putting new stuff in front of people, I think, more often than the old stuff. So I think just keeping stuff out continually is what is needed.
Yeah, man. And you know, that was a good point where you brought up like, you know, they would, you know, there are changes, but these changes really, the motivation is still the same, you know, regardless of these changes that are happening. And, you know, obviously I would say this, I'm not opposed to the World Mission Society staying, you know, like being an active church and keeping all of its members, if they changed all of like their doctrine to a more, you know what I mean, like to a doctrine that doesn't hurt people, you know what I mean? And but the thing is, it's not likely to happen, because they would completely have to like just overhaul their entire theology. I mean, you know,
you'd have to tear the whole thing down.
Everything.
It'd be like trying to spray like perfume on a dead corpse. Ultimately, it's like it might do a little bit to help the stench, but ultimately, like something significant needs to happen to really
the bare bones
change
are like
things.
The foundation is already corrupted. It already started off wrong. You know, you'd have to try to, you know what I mean, make amends and first apologize of all the lies that were told, you know what I mean? And I mean, and and I don't even think that's enough, because again, you know, even if there was members that were like, okay, well, I'll choose to stay, I'll give them another chance. Well, the motivation has always been, you know, tithe and offering and power. So what are you going to do? Get rid of the law of tithe study? Then how are you going to make your money? I mean, do these people even like, I'm talking as high as it goes, Zangyo Ja general pastor, do they even really believe in God? Because if they did, you would think they wouldn't be doing what they're doing. So like, is the motivation power and money? If it is, then why would they get rid of a study like law of tithe? Because then what would be in it for them? You know what I mean? Like, and it's just, it's just crazy to think about that.
Yeah. And I just think like you're talking about, like at its core, its foundation, its origins are all rooted in something that's just really not good. And we don't know exactly what that is. Like what was going on in Juchul Kim and Zong Gilja's mind when they decided to create this narrative about ahnsahnghong and everything that's followed. Like what was actually going on? Like it's almost like, not almost, it is just so hard to understand, like how could a human being, knowing like what they're doing, start this and continue to run with it? Like what would have to be going on inside of a person to continue to tell thousands of people I'm God? And I don't know, it's just hard to understand, impossible to understand. But I think like at the core of this organization is something I see like a difference between this and like many like just normal Christian churches that at least I, in my personal experience, have been to, that which are not perfect. And there's many issues. You could point to many issues in evangelical churches, and mega church culture and all sorts of things that do have like a money motivation or power motivation, but that's not the case for a lot of them. And I think I've been to and been a part of a lot of churches that I think at least one of the foundational elements of it is just a really simple, like wanting to help people, like genuinely just wanting to be something that is there to serve people rather than there to have the people serve it. And that's something that the WMSCOG at its base level is fundamentally an organization that is like its direction is getting people to serve the organization. Its main motivation, that's a motivation that's so far removed down the line of motivations of the WMSCOG, of wanting to, like, their focus, their intention, what they're trying to figure out how to do is how to serve people and how to, like, be something that benefits and enriches the lives of its members and is there to come up underneath them and serve them and help them. And that's just not, you see that in so many examples that is just not what is motivating this group. And so, yeah, I think that's it needs something more than just these little trimmings here and there on the exterior. Like, it needs an atom bomb to implode at its core.
Yeah.
And then ultimately probably just get it out of there. But I do think, like you said, I think there are things that could change, some of these exterior elements that could change, that would at least result in, like, people having a bit more of like a better positive experience in there, and in terms of even things like how kids are treated and in some of the Zions. I know that it's not the same everywhere, but I know there's just different, again, just cultural things that I think could change as a result, and have changed in some aspects due to, critics, slanders like us saying, hey, that's not right. And they're like, oh, not out of a good motivation, saying, oh yeah, you're right, that's not right. We acknowledge that and apologize for that. Now we're going to work to change. It's more like, oh no, we don't do that. And then they'll go and scurry in secret and try to change it where nobody sees and say, oh no, we never did any of that. Yeah. So it's like, but even that, at least hopefully there's some change that allows people again to have a more positive existence in there.
Yeah. And again, a lot of it is like, me as an ex-member, I like put myself in the mind frame of like, man, like, I wish some of these changes were happening when I was in there. It would have lightened my load a little bit. But still, eventually, even though I would have liked to have been there through some of these changes, ultimately, I still would want to leave once you realize like this place isn't true, and
it's not true.
Like, if anything, it's just to lessen the blow for the members that are currently in. This is why I'm kind of happy there's some changes going on, not because internally they wanted to change, but like you said, because of all the stuff that's being said about them. They're being aired out, in real time online, and they have to make these changes, and it's a publicity thing, and they're trying to save face. And so, yeah, man, it's pretty crazy to think about it, because like accountability, like, I just keep thinking, like, I keep trying to make a scenario in my head where I'm like trying to make it work. Like, well, is there a way to make the WMSCOG good? But it's like, well, there'd have to be accountability. Like I said, they'd have to first admit their wrongs. Well, what comes with that? If you're admitting all your wrongs and all your foul play, you got to cough up to all of it. You got to confess to all of it. And if you do that, then the two people sitting at the top got to go do some time. So, so how are you? Unless they're ready to do some time and then like pass the torch to something, like, it's just too hard, man. Like,
it's not going to happen.
It's not going to happen, bro. But
not gonna
wishful
happen.
Thinking, right? Like, they all of a sudden CNN breaking news, like Mama Chang turns herself.
Like, that would be great.
It would.
That would be, man. That would be good television.
All right, man. So you were telling me in the beginning, you're really into like the content creating and you're a movie guy. Give me your top five, man. Top five movies of all time.
Top five. Oh man, I was literally trying to think about this and talking with my son, and I asked him that, and then he asked me. I was like, man, that's hard because, yeah, I think at the top, probably at least at this point in time, probably my number one that I would say is Signs.
Signs.
M. Night Shyamalan, Mel Gibson, the Aliens,
Yeah,
Crop
yeah, yeah.
Circles.
I saw that
So
a
that's
long time ago.
yeah.
Yeah.
First time I saw it, I hated it, and I was a kid when I
Yeah.
saw it. But as I've watched it later on through the years, it's just such a good movie. It has so much like deep meaning, and it's just simple. A lot of critics hated it. I think it wasn't what people were expecting, but I love Signs. Then I love Star Wars.
Star
Actually,
Wars.
the it's probably the first episode one, The Phantom Menace, is probably my favorite, and a lot of that is like the nostalgia around it.
Yeah.
Yeah, just the lightsaber duel between Obi-Wan and Qui-Gon and Darth Maul is like it's at the top of like movie scenes in history for me. Just because I remember watching that as a kid in the theater is like life
Yeah.
changing. And actually, that movie is probably one of the main reasons got into like making videos and wanting to make movies. So that one is pretty significant for me.
Okay.
So man, three more. I love the Truman Show. I don't
Truman
know if you remember that
Show.
one.
That's
Yeah.
like in the WMSCOG, you're almost required to watch
Yes.
that movie.
Yeah.
That and The
Oh, really?
Matrix. Yeah.
The Matrix. The Matrix is a really good. The first one.
Yeah.
So that's three. Two more. Man, this is hard. I would say, oh, maybe something like Interstellar. I don't know. I don't
Interstellar.
know if that'd be my top. I'd have to
Okay.
really stop and think about this. I'd probably
Yeah.
throw another Star Wars in there. Maybe Revenge of the Sith.
Yeah.
Um, I really like the Batman movies as well. The Dark Knight.
The Dark Knight, bro. Okay. Yeah, that's
Yeah,
my favorite
Dark
one, man.
Knight's really good. Yeah, Castaway. Did I say Castaway already? Tom Hanks, Lost
Nope.
on the Island. I've always loved that one.
Okay.
So there's probably five in there somewhere.
Yeah, yeah, that's cool, man. Yeah, but that's for the audience, but also for myself, so that I'm trying to make myself a list of movies that I need to watch or rewatch. In this case,
Yeah,
the funny thing is, Dark Knight. I was thinking about that the other day. Like, man, I need to watch that movie again. That's my favorite Batman movie. Signs.
yeah,
I
it's really good.
watched it. I don't remember it too well because I watched it when I was a lot younger. So I'm
You
definitely
should
gonna
watch it
watch
again.
that this
Definitely
weekend.
watch it again.
Yeah, I'm gonna check that out. And
Yeah.
then you also mentioned Star Wars. I'm not gonna lie, I never even tried to watch it. I've never watched not even a little
Okay.
bit
Yeah.
of it. So,
Oh,
but
you've
I've
got to.
yeah, like I'm gonna check it out. I'm gonna check it. So maybe after this, you gotta send me like the information of the first
Send you the
films.
list. Yeah.
Yeah, send me the list in order because the last thing I want to do is, you know what I mean, walk
Right.
into the wrong episode or the wrong film, and then it's kind of like
Right.
walking into a WMSCOG Bible study. They just go to the middle of the Bible, pick a verse here, right? You know context, and like this is where we're
Yeah.
starting from, So
Right.
I want to get
And I would say the first six Star Wars movies, like I'm my family knows me as like a passionate anti sequel trilogy, which would be like the last three Star Wars movies that came out most recently.
okay.
I have some harsh criticisms for them, but lately, like one of the reasons it's so hard to think about movies because I don't watch a whole lot of movies. Like my wife and I watch a lot of shows.
Mhm.
But if I'm like sitting down and watching something by myself, usually I'm watching like behind the scenes stuff, which I've always loved. But at this point, I find like more interesting and entertaining than the actual show. Like I love watching the behind the scenes, seeing how stuff is made,
Yeah.
and I can relate to that and learn stuff too.
Yeah.
Like a lot of what I'm doing, I kind of can learn like how to create stuff and create stories, and so yeah, I love watching behind the scenes stuff probably more than movies at this point.
Yeah.
But yeah, if you want a list, I'll send it to you.
Yeah, for sure. I will watch it, man. I'm gonna give you my honest feedback, but I will watch it. It's like Star
Yeah.
Wars and Game of Thrones are the ones that all my friends are like, watch it, watch it, watch it.
Yeah.
And I just
I've
like
never watched Game of Thrones.
never watched that. Okay. Okay. Yeah. So I've heard a lot of stuff about that one, but yeah, just never watched either or, but I need to. I need to give it a shot, And a lot of it is just the time, you know how it is, man.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm
Yeah,
definitely gonna
exactly.
check those out. Interstellar, man. I love that movie, bro. Interstellar is a
Yeah,
good
that's a
movie.
good one.
Me myself, like personally, like
Yeah, I was gonna
I
ask, what's your top five?
yeah, like I like classic, like I love classic movies, like stuff that I grew up on. But honestly, like I would prefer a good documentary over a
Yeah.
movie. I'm just weird like that. Like, like
Yeah.
my wife and my son, like they kind of don't like to sit in the living room with me sometimes because
Yeah.
they're like, oh, he's watching another documentary. You know what I mean? Like, I'm
Yep.
very big on learning stuff, man. I like to learn and
Yeah.
just, explore stuff. But like movies, of course, I love movies too. Man, I would have to say, man, top five. Man, I wasn't now that you asked me
It's
that
hard,
question,
isn't
I'm
it?
like, it's hard.
It's hard.
I would
Seems like it should
say,
be easy, but
yeah, like well, my favorite actor is Denzel Washington. I don't know if you heard of him.
okay, yeah. Oh yeah,
So
yeah.
I have to put Training Day as number one for
Yeah.
me, just because Denzel's the man. Uh, but like, I don't know, two, man, Jurassic Park,
Oh
like
yeah.
that's like one of my favorite
Classic.
movies, like the original ones, I would say like one
Yep.
through three were my favorite. I don't know, man. I like shark
Yeah,
movies
me
too,
too.
man. Like
Jaws.
Jaws, man, the original
Jaws
Jaws,
is
like
great.
yeah,
Oh yeah.
Jaws. So man, throw
See, now
Jaws
I'm
in there.
remembering. Now I'm remembering some like the
Yeah.
classics. Yeah.
And another thing about me, man, I know this one's gonna be unpopular to a lot of people. They're gonna be like, that's nerd stuff or little kid stuff, but like me, and I think this is one of the things that contributed to me joining the WMSCOG is like prior to joining, I was very big into conspiracy theories. And like
Yeah.
I love that type of stuff. I love like that nerdy Scooby-Doo type, like not just conspiracy theories, but like in Scooby-Doo, trap doors and like all the hiding places, like all that stuff.
Yep.
So one of my favorite movies is National Treasure because
Okay.
it's
Yeah.
like a combination of like conspiracy theories with hidden doors, hidden
Yep.
compartments and like maps and like so that's one of my favorite movies of all time is
What about
National
Indiana
Treasure.
Jones?
Oh,
Did you ever
Indiana
watch Indiana
Jones, man.
Jones?
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
bro. What's the one? It's been a while since I'm not gonna lie. It's been a while since I watched them, but the one
Yeah.
where he
Me too.
grabs that
Years.
heart, like man, that one
Oh,
is
that
one.
was the Temple of Doom.
Temple
Temple of
of
Doom. That would be
Doom,
the second
bro.
one.
I was a
Yeah.
little kid watching that, like, oh, what is this, man? Like, yeah, so that's
Yeah.
cool, man. Yeah, so and then you say you're a big gamer, Fortnite, man, but you haven't jumped
Fortnite.
on with
Yeah.
me, man.
I know.
What's
I
going
know.
on, Jordan?
I know, man. Hey, let me. I need to just do it right now. I'll turn my Xbox on, and we'll get a
There you
round
go,
in.
man.
We could
I,
live stream a game next time.
man, could you imagine what the WMSCOG would say about us? Like they'd have a
What would
whole
they say?
education, bro. They'd say, speaking of that, one of the changes that I've heard, because when I was in the WMS, it was definitely 100% frowned on to play any type of video games. And now I'm hearing from the recent members that are leaving that now they're saying, oh, we never said that. It's okay to play video games. If you want to play video games, knock yourself out. And I'm like, man, those are one of the changes that I
You missed
wish.
out on
Yeah,
that.
I missed like
Yeah.
I sold my Xbox, man, because
Yeah.
I thought it was a sin, So
Yep.
it's just funny.
Hey,
Look,
well, as a Christian, I got rid of all my movies. I used to have a pretty big DVD collection. I just love. That's why, like, I've been removed from, like, I've loved movies, but that really was at its full grown state, I suppose, like years ago. And when I got really focused on Christianity, like I got rid of all of them, thinking that probably similar. So you're not alone there, and that kind of thing doesn't just exist in the WMS. For whatever reason, whatever influences told me that, hey, I need to get rid of my my DVD collection. So, but yeah, you missed out. You missed out. You could have been keeping Passover and gaming and
all of that, bro. And like now they're saying like you can keep Thanksgiving, you can eat the food, and you can spend time with your family on Christmas, and like it's just
Thanksgiving. I remember when they changed that, the Thanksgiving thing. Yeah, that was a
and the funny thing is like they flip-flop back and forth over the years. This is why they're so messy. Like, it's just so crazy to me how
it's hard to keep up with.
Right. They changed their doctrine as much as they changed their socks, But yeah, pretty weird, man. Pretty weird. But at the same time, if it's benefiting the members, good. I still have, a cousin that's in there. They made him a deacon recently, and so I'm hoping that life, maybe these changes are helping him a little bit, not be as stressed, even though I highly doubt it, because high demand control groups like this, like it's just very difficult to do anything, you know what I mean? And to your point about getting rid of your DVDs, like that, just all these type of things are like ideas that influence us, you know what I mean? Like to do it's just very weird. Like I can relate a lot of WMSCOG stuff. This is why I really believe bad theology hurts people, and you don't just find bad theology in cults. I would say that, sometimes even leaders of normal Christian churches, like sometimes influence people in a negative way. Not all of them, you know what I'm saying? But like, it's just, it's a lot. That's a whole can of worms in itself. You know what I mean? Like,
it is
to go down that rabbit
we
hole.
could have a lot of fun talking about that can of worms.
Yeah,
for sure.
For sure, man. Well, Jordan, let me ask you this, bro. You got anything you want to mention? Anything you want to talk about? Maybe some future ideas for the channel, or like just anything you got cooking up, or just anything in life?
Yeah. I mean, it'd be fun one of these days to talk more about my own faith journey. It's something that I've gone back and forth about. Do I want to share this on my channel? It's just kind of a confusing thing because of where I'm at, what the channel has been and represented, and kind of where I'm at now. I'm not exactly sure the best direction to go with that, because and it's contributed to me not putting out as many videos, just because it's been a bit confusing about how to proceed. And I've been pretty open, I think, a lot in videos, but it's more just kind of like these like ambiguous sort of statements about my faith and about changing my faith. And so I've even done that a little bit in this conversation. And so it'd be fun to talk maybe more about that at some point. And again, I'm back and forth about whether I need to do that. But sometimes I'm just like, man, I just want to clear the air, be totally transparent, and letting people know like where I stand today. And so that would be a whole other video, but could be fun to maybe discuss at some point.
I'd love to do that, bro. I'd love to do it. I mean, you said maybe you want to do that on your channel, but just know the doors are always open here, man. Just as you always had the doors open on your channel, doors always open here to talk about whatever you want to talk about, man. And I think it's good, you know what I mean? Like, at the end of the day, it's kind of like when I'm talking to WMS members, and it's like, if you ever feel like there's something that you really can't share, because of, shame or, guilt or something like that, then we're just letting that control us. You know what I mean? And a lot of the times when WMS members, including myself, when I finally spoke out, or when members speak out, ex-members, like, it's healing. Like it feels good to like get it off of your chest instead of holding things in, so I think that's something very cool that you could do, man.
Yeah, I agree. It'd be fun. I think most of my hesitation surrounding it is like, to be honest, maybe I'm self-deluded or something, but I don't feel like I have a whole lot of like worry or fear about like people's perception of me. maybe to a degree, like I might think of, oh man, if I was totally transparent, what would that person think, or what would that person think? There's some of that, but I think like overall, you know, when I really get down to them, it's like what, I don't care. Like that's not my job to make them think certain things of me, and I know what Christianity programs people in the same way that it programs is kind of a derogatory word, but I think it's somewhat accurate how it can teach people, maybe I'll use that word, teach people to view like some of the things I've said in this video. I know that where I would have come from, how I would have perceived myself would have just, so many red flags would be going off. And I would be like, oh man, he's in a dangerous spot. He's on a slippery slope. He's this and that, you know, very similar in a lot of ways to how the WMS or any group, any would perceive somebody using that kind of language of shifting their views about certain things or whatever. And so I know that a lot of the people that have followed my channel would have a lot of concern or have certain ways that they then perceive me and think about me. But again, I honestly don't think, like, there's a little bit of hesitation that comes from that, but overall, I'm not too worried. I don't feel like I'm too worried about what people think of me. I think the biggest concern is like, how is this going to affect people? Like, I don't want to negatively impact anybody or cause anybody like difficulty in their own life, or but there's also the aspect of I do think it's healthy and good to, like you said, kind of vent everything out and to be transparent. And so that would be, I think, just for the sake of like, as I continue to make videos on the channel, there's an element to which it feels like I don't want to feel like I'm being deceptive, just because Great Light Studios, even in the name, like it presents itself as something that I don't necessarily know that it fully resonates with where I'm at today. And so if I'm going to continue to make videos, I just don't want to do so giving people like a false impression, or leaving people like kind of in this place of having this idea of who I am and what this channel represents that I don't necessarily think I want it to represent anymore. And to be clear, like, I'm not anti-Christianity or anti-God or anything like that. Like, that's not where I'm at. My goal isn't to like, I could go off on a tangent there. There's just been a lot of things that I've experienced and wrestled with, and questions, and encountering other views and seeing other people that are 100% sincere and devoted and have a zeal and love for God, and looking at them and realizing, like, people that had totally different views of me, and knowing they're wrong. They're absolutely wrong. I know that. I know they're wrong, but yet they are so sincere in their love for God. And you see that in it's not like there's just one group like that, like one group that's external to, you know, my views, where I just saw that and have seen that rise up in so many areas. That one major thing that's led me to like just massive questions has just been, if all these people and all these different belief systems are just so convinced, so sincere that they've got it right, and then it's like I look back for a minute, I look in the mirror and like, wait a minute, I'm just one of those people. I'm just in another group doing that same thing, convinced of the story, telling myself this story about the world and about reality, and fully convinced that I'm right. And so it's just like something that any rational person, that should cause them, if they're really thinking about that, to step back and say, wait a minute, if you have this Mormon over here with a deep, sincere love for Jesus, and in my worldview as a Christian, I was told I have to perceive that person as on their way to hell, totally deceived, totally wrong. He's totally wrong. I'm right. I've got the truth. He doesn't. He's in a dangerous place. I'm not. And then, oh, wait, here's this WMSCOG member, loves God. All they want is to know the truth. They love the Bible. They believe it wholeheartedly. They just want to know what's true and live their life as best as they can and according to that. But they're wrong too. And I'm right. And then you got all these groups over here where you had to do that. And eventually it's like seeing that just forced me to look at myself and say, like, how do I know? Like, how do I know that I've got it right? So they have all got it wrong. And I just happen to be lucky enough to end up with the right ideas so that, you know, they're all in danger of eternal hell. Lucky for me, I'm not, because I somehow arrived at the right conclusions about who God is, and these people didn't. And I think just that whole way of thinking is so deeply embedded in Christianity and in all like these subsets of Christianity and all these things that spawn out of it, like the cults. And it's just a way of viewing people in the world that just doesn't work for me anymore. It's not just that it doesn't work for me. It's just that it does not make logical, rational sense. And I just think, you know, God, if God is the one who created us with brains and rationality and logic, and, you know, as I've said, and as we've said so long on the channel and push members to do, is to use your brains, think about things, you know, through the years, that's been a big mirror in my face saying, if you're going to tell people to do that, you have to continue to do that too. And so I have, and it's definitely shifted the way I think about things, not because I wanted it to, just to be clear, like none of this was something that I wanted to, it wasn't a direction I wanted to go. I did not. Changing your views, giving up aspects of your faith is something that is really, really hard and painful and disorienting. And there's just such another idea that exists within all these groups. Again, whether it's the WMS or Christianity, I think a lot of these ideas actually, again, the WMS is just like this thing that spawned out of Christianity, but these ideas that come that people like myself or people like you in your situation with leaving the WMS, there's just this immediate assumption of evil or ill intention. Like there's just this evil motivation. Oh, they have pride. Oh, they're just like shaking their fists at God, and they're haters of God, and they're haters of truth. There's something evil. There has to be some kind of evil motivation behind what they're doing because they no longer believe what I believe. So, you know, I think often people they don't know what to do with that. They don't know how to process that within their own framework for the world. And so they have to put some sort of evil motivation behind it to like soothe the discomfort that it causes. Because when they hear, oh, Edgar's leaving, Edgar, 10-year member, he knew everything about the WMS. Now he's leaving. Like, that's going to make members uncomfortable. It's going to be this thing of like, well, why is he leaving? Like, does that mean what I'm believing is it true? And like, well, I don't want to think about that. I don't want to have to think about, you know, the ground I'm standing on and whether it's true or not. So it's easier just to say, oh, well, he's just evil.
Yeah.
Oh, he's just is prideful, and he's a Judas, or he's a this or that, to demonize you. And that allows you to just not have to really think about it. Think about what's the real reason why you are where you're at and why I'm where I'm at. And so I don't even know how I got off on that, but I think that's there's just a lot there. And so there'd be so much to unpack. Another reason why I've hesitated to just make a video and say, hey, here's everything laid out. Because it's like, I'm a kind of a perfectionist, and that can be sort of debilitating at times, because like, well, where do I start? Like, what should I say? What should I not say? How can I make clear what I'm saying and what I'm not saying so people aren't confused? And so it's easier to just be like, well, I'm just not gonna touch it. But then when we have conversations with like this, it's like it's hard for it not to just come out.
Right.
Yeah.
I'm glad that it did come out. I'm glad that you elaborated a little bit on it. I'm still me myself. I'm still trying to like understand fully. Like if I don't know if you feel comfortable saying, but like, are you leaning more like agnostic right now, or like would would you?
I mean, if I was fully honest and just coming from where I've been and the deep connection to my faith that I've had for for 36 years, that was really at its peak the last decade. It's really difficult to put a label on myself of agnostic because it just there's something deep within me that says, "Oh man, that's wrong." There's so many ingrained things that say you can't say that about yourself. But if I'm totally honest and transparent, I would say that that's the label of agnostic is probably the most accurate to where I am today. I can't say that I would can confidently say I align with a lot of most things that make a Christian, are things that I've, over the years have just increasingly found difficult to be able to really embrace and say, yes, I believe that is actually true. I believe it to the extent that a Christianity says you need to believe something in order to be accurately identified as a Christian. Like I don't think I'm there. And as I said before, I'm definitely not like anti any of it. I'm not like I want to disprove it or be antagonistic against it and try to convince people that it's not true. Like I'm not convinced that Christianity is not true. That's not where I'm at. I'm not like I don't believe any of it's true. I don't believe Jesus rose from the dead. I don't believe God exists. I'm definitely not there. I believe that there's a lot of really good, solid arguments for some of those things. But I also feel like there's valid, legitimate reasons for rational, sincere people to look at the evidence and to say, I'm not convinced. Like, yes, I see that, but there's all these other questions and counter arguments that I found for a lot of things with the version, at least of Christianity, I held to for so long. There were just things that would just slip one after the other out of my grasp, as it were, in terms of like I don't know how to rationally believe in this, and I've tried with everything in me to hold on to this specific doctrine or this specific belief. Like I'm trying, and I'm begging and pleading for God to let me hold on to this thing or that thing, and I'm doing the research and I'm listening to the arguments. But as I've allowed myself to listen to other ideas and listen to not only the Christian presentation, but listening to both sides, listening to good debates, and then not even listening to debates. One thing that I've done over the years is just the confirmation bias in myself. Like it was always difficult for me to just like listen to an atheist. Like let's get a Bart Ehrman presentation and let's just listen to him talk. Let's just hear his perspective. Like that was always difficult for me. Like if I was going to listen to Bart Ehrman, it would be Ehrman, however you say that, or any other, a skeptic. It would always be in like I'd always want to do that only in the context of like a debate, something where like I could hear that, but then immediately be soothed and comforted by hearing the alternative argument. So I think there's always been a lot of confirmation bias in me where I've wanted to always make sure that, but it's always just been scary to just listen to the other ideas that are totally contrary to what my entire world is built around. But yeah, over the last 4 or 5 years, I've done more of that, and I've listened to more stuff and just found like, hey, there's like all these, like not every person out there who doesn't believe in Christianity is like just this evil, wicked, God-hating person that just is shaking his fist and wanting to live in sin. And there's a lot of people that just look at the evidence as they do anything else for different belief systems and ideas and arguments and say, I see that, but I'm not convinced that that's true, or that doesn't really solve all these other questions or arguments. So yeah, I suppose I'm yeah, mostly agnostic, but I still pray like occasionally, like in the form of like I'm praying like, God, like I want to be in light, I want to be in truth, I want to be doing things your way. But usually phrasing that as like, if you're there, like I don't even know if you're there. I have no idea. I honestly have no idea. Um, and But yeah, there's just a lot of questions, so many questions in my mind surrounding what I've believed my whole life that have built up, that I've tried as hard as I could to find the best arguments for these things being true. And just so many things I just found like, I hear the arguments, I hear what the apologetics are for these things, and I just find it lacking in so many areas. Like I just find it like, yes, I see what you're saying, there's a good point there, but like there's also some not so great points being made here. And ultimately just found myself like, if I'm going to be rational and honest, like I can't say I believe this or believe that. um and Yeah, so that's not been a pleasant experience. That's not been fun, and that is this is like so far removed from anything I would have ever expected for myself, where I would have thought I would be. Uh, and I've come more to terms with it. But it's been a big shift for sure. When we've said that where we were 7 years ago to where we are today has changed a lot. Like that's definitely true for me. And I don't feel like I haven't arrived. Again, I want to make clear, like I haven't arrived at this place of like, I'm convinced now in the alternative view, and to the degree that I want to now prove this is all wrong and why you shouldn't believe it. Like that's not at all where I'm at. And again, another reason why I haven't shared it on the channel, because I don't want to present myself as that or come across in that way, that I don't want to be another channel or podcast out there, deconstruction podcast or something, trying to convince everybody of why Christianity is all a sham. Like I'm not convinced that it is. There's still a lot of things about it that I find compelling, a lot of things about Jesus that I find very compelling. And I think there's some interesting things surrounding like the resurrection even. But at the end of the day, I just I don't know. That's where I'm at. Like I don't know what I think about it. And I can't say, if I was asked like point blank as you just did, I would be deceptive and not truthful if I said, yes, I'm still in a place where people would like label me as a Christian. Like, I just don't think that would be accurate. So yeah, I said I wasn't going to get into this,
and we got into
a whole other episode. But and now I ran past. I needed to go at 2, so I should probably get off here. But leaving people with this really depressing note.
Nah, man, I don't think it was. I'm glad you talked about it. I don't think it's depressing. If anything, I feel like I've changed a lot in those 7 years that, when I first met you and leaving the WMS to where I'm at now as well. Like when I first left, I was all about Jesus, pushing people to Jesus, pushing people to Jesus. I'm not saying that that's still not my goal, but that's all. Like if it was not like pointing you to Jesus, like if I lean towards this way, or I want to take a break, it's like, no, let me push you to this, you know what I mean? Like, and now I realize like, no, like it's okay. People have different paths and different journeys, and of course my hope is always going to be to try to help people get to know who Jesus is, and but at the same time, the biggest priority is to help them leave the WMSCOG, help them understand why it was a cult, and then they have to enter that journey, for themselves. And if they do want to talk about Christianity or anything after that, that is totally 100% up to them, And so yeah, but two things can be true also. And again, I know you got to go, man. So maybe it's best if we, maybe we do a part two sometime.
Yeah, we should. That would be fun because I just feel like there's so much more. and my kids are gonna be standing outside of school wondering where in the world I'm at. So, but I would love to keep going because this would be fun. This stuff would be a lot of fun, and I think there's a lot more to talk about here. Maybe even just explanation or clarification about what I'm saying and what I'm not. And I'd like to hear more about what you're let's do it. Where you're at. I know you've been on a journey that's not, you haven't reached a final destination as well. So
yeah, everywhere, man. But Jordan, thank you for the time, bro. Really appreciate it.
Yeah. Man, thanks for having me on.
Yeah, no problem, bro. Hopefully we can do a part two, like I said, if you're down for that. And yeah, man, all the best, bro. And I'll be talking to you soon, man. To everybody watching, hope you guys enjoyed this episode of Defusing the WMSCOG.
You are the way, I'm only asking for guidance, so I am not led astray. Had some people in the church say they love me, then left me broken. Hypocrisy at its highest, farther for you will know them. I ain't saying that I'm perfect, I've had some people I've hurt and some bridges that I left burning. It took me some time to grow up, but who I am today can't be compared to the past me. There's life inside his word, as you pay for us.